Welcome to today's webinar. Our session is called E-commerce 101, How to Identify Your Target Audience. This is hosted by Tailwind. My name is Susan Muller. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Tailwind, but today's session is going to be led by Cash Daughtry, who is the user researcher here at Tailwind. Whenever we need to know something about what Tailwind users are thinking, Cash is our go-to person. And we really appreciate him being able to join us for this session. So Cash, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Cash, as Susan mentioned. I'm the user researcher here at Tailwind. Yeah, welcome to e-commerce 101. So basically what I do is, talk to our customers, learn about their experience, right, their values, their needs, and essentially kind of take those insights and turn them into effective marketing, right? Talk to our marketing team, tell them what our customers are thinking. And also talk to our product team as well, right? Kind of get a sense of how can we best benefit our customers, right? How can we come up with products that are really kind of addressing the needs of our target audience? Um, a couple of things that we'll cover here. First thing, of course, is what is a target audience? We'll talk about some tools and techniques to kind of help you find your target audience. We'll talk about what to do with that information once you actually have it. And then towards the end, we'll talk about a Tailwind feature that can actually help supercharge this entire process. All right, so what is a target audience? If you think about kind of, your larger target market, you'll have kind of a combination of customers with different preferences and needs, values, right? But if you really want your marketing to be effective, you really want to focus on that subgroup of customers who are going to be the most likely to buy your product, right? So one way to think about this is, your target audience is kind of a subgroup or segment within your target market who's most likely to buy your products. And you can kind of define that target audience by, a unique set of characteristics that they all have in common, right? So, these are going to be the customers who are actually engaging with your social posts, right? They're going to be the ones who are actually clicking on your ads, visiting your website, signing up for your email newsletter, and actually buying your products, right? So when you're thinking about marketing, right, this is really who you want to be focused on in your marketing. And when you're thinking about some of the characteristics that kind of are similar across your target audience, these are some of the characteristics that you should have in mind. So things like demographics, right? What common, maybe patterns in age, gender, occupation are you seeing? Getting into things like psychographics, right? So this is more about how customers think, right? What are some of the motivations behind certain behaviors, right? Their attitudes, beliefs, values. If you're selling B2B, right, you can get into things like firmographics, right? Common industries or sizes of the businesses that you're selling to. You can also look at behavioral characteristics. So this is like, what are customers actually doing on your stuff, on your website or on your store? Are you noticing patterns in maybe what they're buying or how often they're buying? Or, throughout the year, are you seeing common patterns in when they're buying? And you can also characterize your target audience maybe by geographic data, right? So are there common patterns you're seeing in terms of where people are buying from, whether it's a particular city or state or country? So jumping into an example here, right? Let's imagine that your e-commerce store selling jewelry, and your target market, right? You kind of settle on selling to women between ages of 25 to 40 years old, who are interested in handmade jewelry. And going through some of the techniques and tactics that we'll talk about in a moment, you kind of land on a unique segment of sort of active buyers and engaged audience members who you characterize by a certain age range. Maybe they have a specific income range that you've noticed. Maybe they have shared interests, right? Maybe they're interested in jewelry making themselves. Maybe they're into environmentalism. Maybe they spend more time on TikTok than other platforms such as Instagram or Facebook. And maybe by looking at some of your your store analytics, you've noticed that they typically purchase from you maybe 1 to 2 times a year, right, or a month. And you might have more than one target audience. So here we have target audience A, but you might also notice, another target audience that has unique characteristics of its own. These are just basic examples, but You can see how as you start to learn more about your customers and specifically the customers who are purchasing from you the most and really most engaged with your brand and message, it can kind of feed into how you approach them in your marketing, right? So you can see the way that you might speak to target audience A, how you might target them, which products you might focus on, is likely going to be much different than the way that you speak to and target audience B in your marketing. And this is really where you're going to start to see your marketing become more effective, right? When you understand the needs and the pain points of your target audience, that's where you're going to start to see kind of the benefits and the results that you're looking for. So, speaking about some of the benefits of actually knowing who your target audience is, I've kind of, talked about, some of them, but your marketing just becomes easier, right? And this is something that we hear a lot from Tailwind customers. It kind of feels like you're throwing things out there, right? And just seeing what sticks. It's hard to really know how to resonate with your audience. And when you do some of the research and digging into, what the lifestyles are of your target audience, right? What they actually value, what they care about, how they make decisions, your marketing just becomes easier, right? It becomes clearer what type of phrasing you should use in things like Instagram captions or which networks to specifically focus on. Product development as well, right? So again, when you're kind of understanding, the needs and pain points of your customers, you can get a sense of what gaps exist, right? And those gaps can kind of help fuel brainstorming on, which products you should focus on developing next. Saving time and money, right? So there's less kind of figuring out, right, what to do. There's less sort of experimentation and going through that period of trial and error and just seeing what works, especially if you're running ads, right? There's a lot of money you can waste if you kind of don't know what you're going for. So having that deeper understanding can save you a lot of time and effort, but also money. And then the last one here, right? And this is really the big one. It's just getting more sales, right? That's kind of the ultimate reason, why we're doing this is when you're focused on the customers who are purchasing the most from you and who are going to benefit the most from your products. Natural result of that is you're going to increase your sales. Okay, so that's all nice to know, but how do I actually find my target audience? And the way I like to think about this is kind of in two phases. So, the first phase here is gathering data, right? So that can come from existing data. There are some methods you can use to kind of generate some new data and kind of going through that. And again, looking for patterns along those characteristics that I mentioned earlier and starting to find, what common characteristics do customers have that are actually purchasing from you, right? Who are actually engaging with you. And then once you have a rough idea of who your target audience is, you can kind of distill that down into an ideal customer profile, right? Or a buyer persona. You might hear this called a few different things, but it's really just a sense of, if you were to, pluck a customer out of your target audience, what might you expect? And then, from that persona, that's really going to fuel a lot of, your marketing. So again, thinking about how do I craft captivating Instagram captions? How do I write effective landing page copy? Maybe you're writing an email, right? What should I include in the email? All that's going to come from these buyer personas that you create from the data that you've gathered through some of these methods. And then, from that, you can test and refine it. It doesn't have to be perfect, right? You can kind of have an idea of what you think your target audience might like, test and see what it works, and then you can iterate over time and get closer to what your actual target audience is. All right, so where do you start looking? So, a great place is any existing data you might have. So, one place to look is your websites or your store, right? This is a great place to find out what are people actually doing in the real world, right? What products are they purchasing? Maybe you have some best sellers that you can look at to see which products you have that, customers are really resonating with. You can look at reviews, right? What are people saying about why they're purchasing the products? Some of the negative reviews. Are there any gaps in value or gaps in need that they have? And depending on what platform you're using, right? If you're using tools like Google Analytics, you can get some like demographic data from your customers and start to kind of look at specific patterns in some of those characteristics. And if their social profiles are public, you can kind of follow them through to their social media profiles and learn more about their lifestyles, their values, things that they're interested in. And then you can tie that to the next one here, social media. So look at your current audience on social media, right? What posts are they engaging with most? What content are you putting out there that they're really resonating with? Look in the comments, see what conversations are being had, see how they talk about the problem space and the solution that you're providing. And again, great thing about social media is you can follow them through to their own social profile, and try to learn as much as you can about the characteristics that make them up, and really start looking for those patterns. Another great one is competitor research, right? So this isn't to say that you should copy what your competitors are doing, but it can give you an idea of which target audience they're going for, right? How they're kind of framing the problem and solution space. You can get a sense of maybe who your target audience is. Maybe in their marketing and messaging, maybe they're missing on a key pain point or value that you've discovered in some of your other research, and that can kind of clue you in on what to focus on in your own marketing. A couple others here. So online communities, right? So beyond just your your own social media presence, right? You can hop onto places like Reddit or Quora. Maybe there are other Facebook groups you can look at. You can get a wider sense again of how people are kind of talking about the specific problem space, or if you can find audiences around your own brand or your own products in these communities. You can kind of use that and supplement it with what you're seeing in your own social media presence. And then the last one here is previous data, right? So maybe you've done some market research in the past that you can draw upon. You might have run some ad campaigns in the past and kind of gotten a sense of what's worked, what hasn't worked, or any personal experience you might have, right? So maybe you've worked in this industry before, or maybe you have friends who've worked in this industry. All this is data that you can use, and you can kind of pull pieces together to kind of begin to build that idea of who your target audience is, and start to form hypotheses and assumptions about who you think they are. So where else can you look? So another thing you can do is, as you start to form these hypotheses and assumptions about who your target audience is, you can actually delve into that more with a few methods here. So first one is, doing things like running a poll or surveys or quizzes. Again, depending on what platform you're using, I know Instagram offers polls you can run. They are a little bit limited. You can use other tools like Typeform, SurveyMonkey, or Google Forms. But you can use that, to ask specific questions. If you have a question about some of the data that you're seeing or some of the patterns that you're seeing, ask those questions. Start to get some feedback around those areas. Maybe you add a link in a social post, or maybe you add a link in your smart bio, right? And kind of have a place for customers to go and provide that feedback. And then from that, right, again, you'll kind of continue to refine your understanding of who your target audience is. And then you can combine that with something like, interviews. And, this is where I spend a lot of my time talking to customers, and understanding, what's their overall experience, right? Why do they feel a particular way about something, or how do they make decisions when they're purchasing an item? Why did they choose you over maybe some of your competitors? It's a really great way, one, for delving into some of the patterns that you might be seeing already. But two, it's great for really getting a holistic understanding of the full journey of your customer, right? So kind of going from the beginning of having a problem, right, or a need, how they make decisions on which products or solutions that they choose, and then maybe even after the purchase experience, right, and figuring out what gaps still exist that you can kind of refine over time. And then the last one here, digital ads, right? So running ads is actually a really powerful way as well to get quick feedback on what's working in terms of maybe your messaging or your products. There's been a lot of advances in things like artificial intelligence and machine learning, and those are really great for running some of those really complicated calculations and getting some quick signals on which products are working really well that you should focus on, which type of marketing and messaging is working really well. And kind of cluing you in on which audiences that those things are working with. Now, I know that was a lot, and one thing I want to stress is don't make this process too complex, right? You definitely don't need to do all these things at once, right? You don't need to do them perfectly. There are, right ways and wrong ways to go about them, but generally what you're trying to do here is you're just trying to look for patterns and get a general idea on, who your target customer is. And then you can kind of, iterate, test, and update over time and continue to refine that profile. And the main thing really keep in mind that you're looking for here is out of your total target market, right? Who's engaging and buying from you the most, right? What are the characteristics that make them up? What do they have in common? And then digging into why they're behaving this way, right? Why do they feel a certain way about your brand or particular product? Okay, so let's say you've done some of this and you feel pretty confident in who your target audience is. You have kind of a general idea. Now, what do you do? Kind of mentioned this earlier, but you can really distill some of those assumptions and insights into a buyer persona here, right? So this is a representative of what a customer might look like in a particular segment or target audience, right? It's not based on a real person. It's more of like an aggregate of what an ideal customer might look like. But as I mentioned earlier, this is really where a lot of your marketing will come from, right? So thinking about how do I craft Instagram captions that resonate really well, right? Pull from what you know about your ideal customer. How do I write effective landing page copy? What type of targeting should I do in my digital ads, right? Or what kind of copy should I use? Which channels should I focus on? Which products should I promote? All that's going to be coming from these ideal customers that you create based on some of the patterns and data that you've accumulated using some of those methods that we mentioned. And again, these are things that you can, A/B test, validate, invalidate some of your assumptions and hypotheses. So again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's a dynamic process that you're going to continue to refine over time. And, at this point, you might be saying a few things. I know that we hear a lot of this from our own customers. Things like I don't have enough existing data right now, right? Maybe I don't have a lot of activity on my store, or maybe my social profile isn't that built out yet. I don't have the audience quite yet, or I don't know where to start, right? There's a lot of paths you can take. There's a lot of different methods you can try out. I don't really know where to start. Or maybe you just don't have the time to do the research. As a store owner, right, you're doing a lot of things. You're running the business. You're also wearing many hats and running the research, or running the marketing rather. And there's just not enough time to actually dig into some of these things. Or in some cases, maybe you have a pretty good idea for your target audience is, right? Maybe you've done some of this research in the past, and you want to kind of start benefiting from that knowledge now. Well, Tailwind has a new feature. This feature is really great, again, whether you're just starting out and trying to figure out who your target audience is, or maybe you're more established and you have kind of an idea of that. It's also great for automating the testing and learning that we were talking about, right? So instead of maybe taking months to do some of this research and gain some of these insights, this can allow you to automate a lot of that and start learning really within just a few weeks, start taking action, and you'll actually start to see results relatively quickly, right? So just in those few weeks, as opposed to maybe a number of months. And I think one of the best parts about it is you can actually start using this feature at just $2 a day. And that new feature is Tailwind Ads. So to tell you a little bit more about Tailwind Ads, I'm actually going to kick it over to Kevin, who is our local Tailwind Ads expert, and he'll talk to you a little bit more about what Tailwind Ads is, how it can be helpful, and how it's actually already helped Tailwind customers. Kevin, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Cash. I will share my screen here real quickly. There we go. Awesome. So yeah, my name is Kevin. I work with all of our existing ads customers today. I want you all to know that if you do have any questions about ads, you can get in contact with me for anything at all, especially if you don't have ads on your dashboard yet. If you've never seen it before, send me an email. I'll keep my email here in the bottom right corner of the next several slides. That way you've got it on hand. You can send me a message now or at the end or when we get into Q&A. But I want to talk to you a little bit about how ads can do exactly some of the things Cash here was talking about, right? It can help you gather new data at scale. It can help you kind of better understand what audience niche is working well for you and what sort of products resonate with that audience. So To talk about that, I wanted to start by telling you about a customer I started working with last summer. The store, it was a jewelry store here. It's called Vermilion Jewelry, and the owner was based out of Australia. They had started making things locally, right? Selling at local markets, things like that. Had a lot of success. You can see here her jewelry looks fantastic. And then recently she decided to take her store online. She learned about her audience a little bit just from selling locally, right? In her city in Australia, she had some sense of, who there was buying her product, right? But that doesn't necessarily, right, translate to e-commerce one-to-one. It also wasn't obvious to her, like, what kind of products would do well online versus in person, right? You especially think about something like jewelry, where you can take a photograph of a piece of jewelry and it can look very nice, but there could be something that maybe looks somewhat plain in a photograph, right? But when you're seeing it in person and moving around and you get to see how the light refracts through a gemstone, right? It may just look and feel different in person and so much better in person. So there's actually, all kinds of, as I'm sure some of you know who sell in person as well, things can end up working a little bit differently in unexpected ways when you go to e-commerce. So, at this time, she had started her site. She was getting about 10 people per day visiting her site, right? After, many months with socials, right? She was getting some of that from search, but she had 100 followers on Facebook, a little over 1,000 on Instagram, about 2,000 monthly views on Pinterest, right? So it's bringing in a trickle of people every day to her store, but it's hard to learn a lot with that, with such a small amount of traffic, especially since some of that's bouncing, right? They're maybe not even browsing or adding to carts. So that's when we started talking to her about Tailwind Ads. She joined very early on when we first started kind of opening it up as a limited beta last summer. And so we started working with her. And when she first started with Tailwind Ads, she got an experience that looked like this here. And she just entered in her website, right? And then our system analyzed her store. We kind of pulled in her, kind of analyzed her brand voice, right? What products she had for sale, the type of individual she was likely selling to based on everything we know about our website, right? We're analyzing all of that information, right? And then we're generating relevant ads for her. So you can see here, she selected 5 products initially. We wrote copy, Ghostwriter did. If you're familiar with using Ghostwriter, our AI copywriting app in Tailwind, we generated all the copy necessary for different ad placements on both Facebook and Instagram, which she was able to review, right? And then she picked a budget, which for her, as a newer online business who didn't have a lot of traffic, didn't have a lot of sales, and was still trying to understand how to really scale her business and really understand what worked, she started with a low budget and focused on really just generating traffic ads to a core set of products. So what our system was able to do ultimately was build a set of campaigns for Instagram and Facebook ads, kind of already tailored to e-commerce. This right now, this feature is only available to e-commerce stores. We're really narrowing in on the kinds of campaigns we're building to make them more effective for that kind of audience of Tailwind members, right? So we're talking about finding your audience niche, right? Like we think about that at Tailwind too, even when we're doing things like making new features and products, right? And so we generated these ads for her to review, and then our system started optimizing her campaigns automatically. And this led to a 700% increase in her daily traffic, right? So she went from having, maybe around 10 people per day visiting to almost 100 people per day. And she was able to start learning. She started getting those signals, right? What products are people adding to their cart? What product pages are people, checking out most often as they explore her store? And something started to coalesce after, 6-7 weeks of data started to accumulate. And that was this ad right here. These earrings were identified as a sort of keystone product for her. Between the increased traffic she was getting and the optimizations our system was making, this ad ended up taking off, right? It ended up selling extremely, extremely well because our system identified this ad as one that would, could return the highest ROI, right? And the way I'll talk here in a second about how our system optimizes those ads explicitly, right? But people started buying a lot of this, right? And so she finally, for the first time, found a product that fit with the core audience she was selling to online that she initially tried targeting and was able to ramp up her spend, right? She was able to increase her budget because our system was now spending the majority of her budget on this ad. And so she retired some ads that we had stopped spending on, introduced some new products, right? And our system kind of continued to learn and optimize. So yeah, the question here is, what are we doing exactly? How did she find this keystone product? And what kind of takeaways does she get from that, right? And what we do here is actually really simple. We look at what ads are doing well, right? So you see ad one here. It's a 3.7x return on ad spend. That's what ROAS is. We see an ad performing like that. We take money away from these ads, these other ads that don't have a strong ROI, and we start shifting it towards the ones that are doing better. And we start this on day one by just spending, $1 or so on each ad. It doesn't take us long for us to start getting signals on which ads are performing well. And we'll start doing some audience optimization within the constraints that you've set, immediately. When I say constraints you've set, maybe you say just women only, maybe in this age group, right? And we'll take it from there. And over time, right, as she ramped up her budget, as she tested new products, she was ultimately able to scale her total number of sales by 4x by the end of the year, right? And so she kind of stuck with her base initial kind of ad budget for about 6 to 8 weeks, and then she started ramping it up as she saw it worked and ramping it up. She introduced more products. She found a couple others that did well, but those earrings that I showed you earlier in the last 7 months, that's ultimately been about 66% of her total ad spend has gone towards showing more people those earrings because our system has identified it as one of the best returns she can get for every dollar of ad spend she invests. So this has been great for her, right? She went from all of her revenue primarily being in person to now having a fairly even split and still growing it, right? And now her revenue, this revenue here, right, is coming from all over the world. Her first sales were in the US and the UK. She had never sold anything outside of Australia before this. So when we set out to build Tailwind Ads, this is the kind of person we were thinking about, right? They were a new online business. They weren't sure where to start. They didn't have a ton of traffic, but they knew they had a good product, right? And they had some sense of who their audience was, but they needed to learn more. So we set out to make executing paid social, right? These paid ads as straightforward as your organic social strategy. And I'll show you what that looks like here in just a second. Whoops. And then we tried to make it simple for you to see what's working and super simple to make adjustments, right? And then we ultimately wanted to significantly reduce the amount of time it took just to get started and figure out what a good ad strategy might be for your business and lower the financial risk associated with it by optimizing how your budget is ultimately allocated to your different ads. So, long and short, if you've used Facebook ads before, we're trying to veer as far away as possible from something like this. Instead, let me play this video here. This is what ads looks like today, right? So you enter in your URL, we analyze your store, we pull in all your products here. You can select products from this picker or enter in a product URL, and we'll ultimately start generating ads for the products you select. But before we do that, we ask you to tell us a little bit about your business, and we'll actually analyze your site and kind of preset a lot of this. And you can see in the background, we're still analyzing the ads. And then you tell us what makes your brand unique and what makes your products, unique from the competitors. And this kind of information is used to kind of personalize your actual ad copy. And we'll pre-fill this again from our own analysis of your site. And then you can connect your Facebook accounts. That way we can create the ads on your behalf. And then you just need to tell us a little bit about your audience. And again, we'll automatically analyze your site. We may pre-select a gender, we may pre-select a number of interests, but you can really hone in on, hey, here's the audience I want to test initially. And then you just tell us how much you want to spend per day. This is actually showing in a, we now ask you to enter a daily budget. This video is showing monthly, right? But you can go down to $2 per day or $60 a month if you really just want to start pulling in new visitors to your site. So here we go. We generate those ads. You're able to go in there, review these, explore your live ads if you've got ads live, and manage all of your paid ads from right within Tailwind, right? From the same place that you manage all of your paid social. I do see a question or two coming in, and I'll definitely get to any questions here in just a second. But just to, kind of summarize, right, what our ads product is doing for you, right? It's making tailored campaigns, tailored ads made for your e-commerce business, right? So we'll write all the ad copy in your brand's tone and voice, and you'll be able to go in there, make any edits, tweaks, right? Adjustments. Maybe there are things you want to call out about your product more clearly than our initial ad copy generation did. You can add that in, and then we'll set up that personalized audience targeting. We'll get you started. You can then hone that in a little bit. And then we'll actually build those campaigns on the back end with multiple different ad placement types on different networks, right? Multiple objectives and more, right? And it's all tailored under the assumption that you are an e-commerce business. And then we'll optimize that budget so you don't spend money on ads that aren't doing well. And like I said, it takes we just have to spend a few dollars in total, right? To start understanding a little bit about what your winning ad is and which ads we should maybe start slowly spending less on per day. And we'll monitor this and make these optimizations multiple times per day, every day of the year, right? And the goal here is driving more qualified traffic to your site, which is one of the number one issues we hear when people first get started with e-commerce, is just getting people to your store and starting to understand what products work. Start trying to understand, right, what type of audience is responsive to these products. And at the end of the day, right, we try to make these ads, easy to review, easy to edit, easy to tweak. What we do on the back end really is just monitor and optimize on a daily basis, which again, going back to that Facebook Ads Manager screenshot, if you've seen that before, you know how daunting a task that is. And today we've built Tailwind Ads to kind of meet you where you're at. We started with Facebook and Instagram because more Tailwind customers advertise there, than anywhere else. We've recently now piloting Google search because we know the importance of Google. And of course, a lot of our audience, very heavy Pinterest users, and that'll be coming down the line as well. And we start at $2 per day. And unlike our standard subscriptions with ads, we know some people want to just try ads for a little bit, maybe just want to really run ads a lot during certain seasons. I believe there was a Christmas design shop who we were mentioned their store just before we got started, right? So a Christmas store, right, may want to advertise a lot a few months out of the year, Christmas in July and Q4 of the year, but maybe less so during other times of the year. So we have a flat 10% fee based on your monthly expenditure. So if it's $0, we don't charge anything. And if it's $100, we would charge $10, right? So that's how it's priced out. So you're not locked into anything, and you can really start as low as you want and scale from there. And if you already know who your audience is, you've already tried ads before and they've worked for you, I still encourage you to check out Tailwind Ads because we're making a lot of those automated budget adjustments and optimizations in real time on a daily basis on the fly in a way that it's just challenging for humans to do otherwise. So again, if you don't have ads in your dashboard, shoot me an email. I'm happy to get that enabled for you. Also, if you want to schedule a time to talk about Tailwind Ads, or if you want to hop on a video call and go through setup together and just kind of answer any questions that come up along the way, also happy to do that. I do that with our customers all the time. So with that, I'll go ahead and open it up for questions for either me or Cash. Yeah.
Super. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Cash. Really great information. I'm going to ask about the recommended daily budget to begin with. And you may have covered that and I
Sure.
just missed it, but what would you recommend to get started with?
So if you already have a sense of products that sell well and who your audience is, I would recommend starting with at least $10 per day budget. And the reason is if you start in that kind of double-digit daily budget range, we'll actually set up purchase conversion campaigns if you've got a meta pixel set up on your website. And those will more aggressively optimize for sales and purchases, right? They are more costly, right? The cost per result is more when your result is a sale than when your result is a click like traffic on an ad. So if you're, again, your e-commerce store is newer, you're still trying to build traction, you're still trying to understand what a bestseller product is for you, right? Maybe you've gotten sales, but it's scattered across products. Maybe you haven't been in business long enough or had enough customer interaction to know for sure who your audience is. Then I would start where you're comfortable below that $10 a day limit, right? And the lowest that we can really make ads work is at $60 a month or $2 a day, right? So if you're really budget tight, start $2, $3, right? If you can afford more budget, right, you're going to get more learnings, more traffic, more sales, even in that below $10 range. If you can start at $5, $6, $7 as well. And usually it takes a couple of weeks for ads to kind of warm up because there's this learning phase, right? We're learning how to best allocate your budget, right? And even on the Facebook side, they're doing optimizations as well, right? Especially if you are spending $10 a day or more. They're trying to analyze all these purchase events, right? Add to cart events and understand what type of customers they are to show more ads, or show those ads to more people like that. For instance, we're doing retargeting. But yeah, where you should start your budget, it really depends on where you are at as a business. And if you want to like talk more in detail specifically about you, schedule a call.
Thank you.
You can. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just going on to the next question from, I think it's Marielle. Can you make ads in other languages? Yes, you can try. English is the only intended language we support. I have seen people use Tailwind ads for other languages, but your mileage may vary there in terms of results. That said, you can write whatever you want in there. You don't have to use what we've generated at all. So that is always an option as well. Linda, does this work with Etsy shops too? So not right now for technical reasons. We're not able to get integrated with Etsy to actually kind of analyze the Etsy shop. But yeah, Shopify, WooCommerce, a number of other platforms out there we do support, but we are going to have support for Etsy sometime soon. We are going to offer a way for you to kind of like manually upload an image for your product, right? And go through that process instead of kind of doing this analysis up front. So we may ask you to like tell us about your products and your brand without having it pre-filled, because we can't do that for Etsy. But that will be coming, and we will be providing a way for Etsy store owners. There's a couple other edge cases out there like that as well. So Claudio, a meta pixel, it's called a tracking pixel, and it helps Facebook and Instagram or Meta understand kind of what type of activity is happening on a website. So you can think of it as like track. So like when Facebook knows who clicks on an ad, right? If I'm on Facebook and I click on an ad, they know, but they don't necessarily know what I then go do on the website, wherever the ad takes me to, unless a tracking pixel is set up. And if you've got a tracking pixel on your website, when I click on the ad on Facebook and then go to the website, that tracking pixel can then tell Facebook if I view product pages, if I add to cart, or if I make a purchase. There's like a few preset things it can inform Facebook about. And so then Facebook can say, oh, this guy, Kevin, who's, 37-year-old male, has XYZ interests, went onto this website and made, 2 purchases, separately, right? And viewed a bunch of products. He might be, a model type persona, right? Like representative of some persona, like Cash was talking about. And so let's try showing this ad to more people like him. And Facebook finds a bunch of other people like me that are kind of exhibiting the same behavior, they become more confident, right? That is a type of person they should be showing the ad to more and more. And so they'll just kind of scale that up. Yeah, so Claudio, right now you would have to have your own website, even when we do have support for the Etsy Pixel, or sorry, Metapixel. If you're an Etsy store owner, you can't actually set up a Metapixel for your store. So you would need to have your own website, or you could just run ads without a pixel. It's not required. We just wouldn't, there are certain ad campaign types we wouldn't set up for you on Facebook that require a pixel, but we could still send traffic to product pages. I think that was all the questions so far. Any other questions about ads or about identifying your audience, some of the methods that Cash talked about earlier?
Would you clarify for Claudio about what you have to have your own website for and what you don't?
Yeah, you would need to have your own website in order to set up a meta pixel specifically, since Etsy doesn't allow that. So yeah, my email here, kevin@tailwindapp.com. Please let me know if you want to schedule some time to talk more about ads. If you don't have ads enabled, because not everyone has it yet, let me know. I can enable it. If you have questions for Cash about better understanding your target audience, any of those methods, any software recommendations, anything like that, you can go shoot me an email as well. I'll get Cash looped in on that if I can't answer the question for you. But I think that's all I have then, Susan. And there's Cash's email as well in the chat if you want to email him directly.
That's great. Thank you. And thanks everyone for attending today. I hope it was really helpful for you. We appreciate your time. We'll send you a follow-up with the recording. So if you missed something, you can check it out. It will also have all the deets on how to get in touch with Kevin and get ads set up for you. So thanks everyone. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thanks. See ya.
Bye all.